everyone, welcome back to our Attract Capital webinar series. I am Sarah and I am here with the Attract Capital CEO Dave Barnett.
Hi everybody.
And today we're going to have a conversation about why AR factoring is a good solution for companies that are in turnaround mode. So my first question for people like me who maybe might not fully understand, what exactly is factoring?
Great question, Sarah. A factoring is essentially an asset-based loan against the accounts receivable of your business, which is the money that your customers owe you. And legally, it's a purchase of those accounts receivables through an assignment of the receivable. And what ends up happening is that instead of the customer paying you the money that they owe you, because you've assigned it and you've sold that receivable to the factor, the customer ends up paying the factor. And usually they make a loan of about 90% loan to value, and it's a very common way that businesses fund themselves for working capital as they're growing, and they don't want to wait for the collection. They can get the money right up front as opposed to waiting 45 days. That's what factoring is.
So it sounds like that would be pretty useful in a lot of different business situations. So if people might not know, how do you actually qualify for something like that?
It's a really good question, Sarah, because the qualification has always been a little sketchy and people never really understand it clearly. So the most important thing is not the financial performance of your business. It is not. The most important thing is the credit quality of your customers, because it's really a loan against the collection of the account receivable. So the factor is evaluating the credit standing of that customer, and if it's a good credit risk, then they'll say, yeah, that's a good receivable, and we'll buy it. So it's a loan against the credit worthiness of your customers. They also need to make sure you have good supporting documentation, because if you don't have good supporting documentation, which allows them to legally perfect the receivable, they can't enter into the transaction. And also, as the borrower, you need to have a good operational resources to be able to manage this, because it's a lot of paperwork and it's a lot of back and forth with the factor.
So I think we've covered why it's good for businesses, but in the market, I'm sure there's probably a different perspective. So how does the market perceive AR factoring?
Yeah, it's a really good observation, Sarah. So factoring has had sort of a checkered past, because usually there's lenders that have been non-bank lenders and they've charged really high rates. And it's always a little bit murky, but what has happened over the last 10 years is that factoring has evolved. Banks have purchased factoring companies, so a lot of these factoring companies have much lower cost of funds. So for example, whereas factoring used to be 20%, 25% interest rate, now it's not uncommon for it to be 8% to 11% interest rate. So the industry has changed a lot, and it's actually a great, as our title said, if you're a turnaround company and you don't have good recent financial performance, it's a great way to rebuild your liquidity for all those battered companies out there, and it's a great way to get back into the credit market. So you do a factoring deal now, and you can do a bank deal a couple of years down the road as your financial performance and as your credit worthiness improves.
Awesome. It sounds good. So maybe you could kind of wrap it up by explaining again why this is a good solution for companies.
Well, it's great because if you don't have good performance, the factor doesn't care. They only care about your customers. So if you lost a lot of money, they really don't care. Or if you have a weak balance sheet, they don't care. They can move quickly and they can make quick decisions. It gives you one-time infusion of capital that you can use to get ahead of your payables and to get ahead of your cash flow. And their pricing has decreased significantly. And so for all those reasons, I think if you're a company that's in turnaround mode, whereas in the past you would have shied away from it, I think you need to consider factoring. And if you want to learn who some of the better ones are, certainly give us a call. We'd be happy to talk to you.
All right, well, I think that does it. So thanks everyone. We'll see you at the next webinar. Bye.
Thank you.